Where did the missing planets of the solar system go? They did not explode or drift away. Some of them never even existed, yet they influenced the entire model of the universe. For example, Vulcan, Nibiru. Planet 9. One planet after another that seemed to exist out of nowhere were invented, tracked, and then forgotten. So in the time ahead, we will uncover the entire process of how they went from being hypothesized to being disproven. Then we will ask an even deeper question. If they never really existed at all, then what exactly is disturbing this universe? For thousands of years, human understanding of the universe was extremely limited. The only planets we could see were just those 5. They are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The reason these celestial bodies were discovered is because they are bright and conspicuous. Even in times without modern telescopes, they could be observed with the naked eye. But by the end of the 18th century, everything began to change. There was an astronomer named William Herschel, who discovered a new ice-blue celestial body. At first, everyone thought it was just an ordinary star, but later on, we were astonished to realize it was an entirely new planet. Today, we call it Uranus. It is more than 19 times farther from the Sun than Earth is. Imagine this. It takes 84 years to orbit the Sun once. In other words, from birth to old age for a person, Uranus has only just completed one orbit. Herschel's discovery not only revealed the existence of Uranus, he also discovered binary star systems and nebulae. In that era, such a discovery almost redefined humanity's understanding of the structure of the universe. However, as research into Uranus' orbit deepened, scientists discovered something strange. Its orbit seemed to be disturbed by some invisible force. A subtle deviation appeared that did not match the predicted model. This anomaly sparked a new line of reasoning. Scientists believed there might be another unknown planet, quietly tugging at it with its gravity. They began relying on mathematical models to predict the location of this mysterious object. Finally, in 1846, they successfully captured it through a telescope and caught sight of that invisible force Neptune. Because it is so far away and so dim, it is impossible to see with the naked eye. This time, humanity confirmed the existence of a planet through calculation rather than observation. But this exploration did not end there. Around that same time, scientists, while observing Mercury, discovered an unusual phenomenon. This planet, the closest to the Sun, its orbit showed a deviation that did not match modeled predictions. Unlike other planets, it did not orbit in a stable manner. It is as if the orbit is being gently pulled by some invisible hand. To explain this anomaly, a French astronomer named Leverrier put forward a bold hypothesis. Perhaps between the Sun and Mercury, there exists a planet yet to be discovered. No one has ever seen it, but it might be there. It happened to explain one of Mercury's movements. He named it Vulcan, symbolizing intense heat, secrecy, and mystery. This hypothetical planet was believed to have an extremely hot surface and to orbit very close to the Sun. It might have been the hidden force disturbing Mercury's orbit. This hypothesis, it quickly attracted widespread attention from the global astronomy community. Although some people questioned that if it were as big as Mercury, it should have been discovered long ago, some scientists proposed another possibility. Vulcan is smaller than Mercury, and its orbit is closer to the Sun. Because of this, for a long time, it has hidden behind the Sun's intense glare, making it difficult to observe directly. According to calculations, it is only about 13 million miles from the Sun, while Mercury, at its closest point, is 28.5 million miles away. This means Vulcan is nearly half as close to the Sun as Mercury. Even more fascinating is, some predicted its orbital period to be 19 days and 18 hours, and its orbital inclination reached 12 degrees, which is more tilted compared to other planets. Because it is too close to the Sun, even when it is at its farthest point, it is still drowned in the Sun's brilliance. So scientists began to speculate that only during a total solar eclipse, that is, only when the moon completely covers the Sun, can it possibly reveal itself in that brief moment of darkness. This phenomenon can occur 2 to 4 times a year. Whenever a solar eclipse happens, astronomers point their telescopes at the edge of the Sun, hoping to catch a fleeting glimpse of Vulcan's silhouette. They have put in tremendous effort, observing again and again. Some even claimed that during a certain solar eclipse, they did see an unusually bright spot. But the problem is, no one has been able to observe it again, and there is no reliable data left behind. The existence of Vulcan still remains theoretical. However, this long search soon welcomed a new line of thought. At this moment, a great figure would change the face of science appeared. Albert Einstein proposed the revolutionary general theory of relativity. He claimed that gravity is not simply a pulling force, but rather the result of space-time being curved by massive celestial bodies. Planets orbit the Sun, as if gliding along the curved surface of space-time. especially Mercury. Its orbit is not as smooth as those of other planets. Instead, it wobbles slightly, as if pulled by an invisible force. Einstein believed the Sun's immense mass distorts the space-time around it, thus changed Mercury's trajectory. This theory is logically elegant and astonishing, but to verify this theory, scientists spent quite a bit of time. Because precise observations were needed, the scientific community racked their brains. In the end, they found Einstein's explanation to be the most reliable. However, even with this simpler answer, some scientists still cannot let go of the Vulcan hypothesis. After all, Mercury is always hidden in the Sun's dazzling glare, making it extremely difficult to observe. That made the dream of Vulcan hard to abandon. But as time went on, more and more scientists, they chose to believe Einstein. They began using solar eclipses to test the theory of relativity, instead of searching for Vulcan. This observation not only put an end to the legend of Vulcan, but also put the scientific seal on Einstein's theory, and the story of Vulcan is far from just an illusion. The end of the planetary legend. As we entered the 21st century, scientists began to focus on another mystery. Massive object that may be lurking beyond Neptune. We call it Planet 9. We call it Planet 9, or Planet. This time, everyone is being more cautious, although no one has actually seen it. Simulation data shows that it is very likely hidden in that distant darkness, silently, influencing the orbits of a group of small objects in the Kuiper belt. If it exists, its mass could be 10 times that of Earth. The orbit is long and elongated. It takes 10,000 to 20,000 years to complete one revolution around the Sun. By comparison, Neptune takes only 165 years. It might be a good giant. Its size is close to Neptune's, but it is farther away, colder, and more mysterious. Scientists have already used observatories in Hawaii. About 78% of possible orbits have been ruled out. The remaining 22% is still enough for it to stay perfectly hidden. Some people call it the Wall-E of space. Others simply refer to it as the 9th planet in the shadows. No matter what it is called, one thing is certain. Its existence would completely change our understanding of the boundaries of the solar system. If it is confirmed, it would be the 5th largest planet in the solar system. The region it dominates would also far exceed the sphere of influence of all other known planets. Of course, among these possible planets, there is an even more legendary name. Planet Nibiru. Do you remember the 2012 apocalypse legend? One of the most popular doomsday scenarios back then was that a planet called Nibiru would collide with Earth. This idea first appeared in the 1970s, when someone named Sitchin claimed in his book that Nibiru orbits the Sun once every 3,600 years. It is like a long dormant planet, the cosmic phantom that occasionally returns. But this theory is full of holes. If it really had such an exaggerated orbit, it would have disrupted the entire gravitational structure of the solar system long ago. Not to mention, it never even appeared in 2012. In fact, some people even mistook Comet Elenin, which appeared in 2011, for Nibiru. But you can tell at a glance it is a comet. It has a coma. It has a tail. So it is not a planet, and the Elenin comet disintegrated after approaching the Sun. Its fragments are still drifting at the edge of the solar system. It will take at least another 10,000 years before they completely leave this region of space. So Vulcan was never found. Nibiru did not crash into Earth, but Planet 9 could still be out there. It is just waiting for us to discover it. These speculations sound a lot like urban legends in astronomy, but they are not just made up out of thin air. The researchers who support these ideas are not just guessing. What they rely on is an entire set of complex mathematical models and computer simulations, trying to use theoretical methods to outline the possible existence of that planet. And this hypothetical 9th planet just happens to explain all the strange anomalies in that region beyond Neptune. We are talking about the Kuiper belt, a massive ring-shaped region around the Sun that looks like a giant donut, filled with icy debris. These are fragments left over from the early formation of the solar system, including cometary ice bodies and dwarf planets like Pluto. Strangely, the 6 most distant objects in this region, their orbits, are surprisingly aligned in the same direction. Moreover, they are all tilted downward by 30 degrees and are not on the same orbital plane as the 8 major planets of the solar system. They are on a completely different level. What is even more bizarre is that although the shapes and speeds of their orbits vary, yet it consistently maintains this rare uniformity. How low is the probability of such a coincidence occurring randomly? Only 0.007%. In other words, it is almost impossible for this to be a coincidence. The theory of Planet 9 was brought up again. It could be a massive but invisible celestial body. Its gravity quietly pulled these small bodies, far from the main orbital plane, into the same direction. However, The initial version of this model did not hold up for long. It faced skepticism due to observational bias and flaws in the calculations. At one point, it was considered over-interpreted until 2017. Another study rekindled the hunt for planets. This time, it was a group of Spanish astronomers who proposed a new method. They focused on a particular type of celestial body, extremely distant trans-Neptunian objects. These objects have highly elongated elliptical orbits, with an average distance from the Sun of over 13 billion miles. In other words, they drift far out on the edge of the solar system. Each orbit is a long and lonely journey. Researchers noticed a key detail. The focal points, where these orbits intersect the plane of the solar system, seem to hold a clue. Because, whenever these small celestial bodies pass near the focal points, they are more likely to be affected by the gravitational pull of other bodies, and their orbits may be altered or even thrown off their original paths. But here's the problem. If their orbits are stable, then everything is normal. But once the orbit shifts, and there is no obvious source of disturbance nearby, that can only mean there is an invisible giant stirring up this region. The conclusion of the research is clear. There is some unknown force affecting the motion of these celestial bodies, and it is very likely to be Planet 9. According to simulations, this planet may be 300 to 400 times farther from the Sun than Earth. It has never appeared, but has left behind a series of orbital fingerprints. Even to this day, the orbital behavior of these extremely distant trans-Neptunian objects still remains the strongest evidence we have for Planet 9. If you are still skeptical about this theory, perhaps you should look back at history. The discovery of Neptune was also due to anomalies in Uranus's orbit. At that time, Newtonian mechanics could not perfectly explain Uranus's orbit, so scientists hypothesized that an unknown planet was exerting a hidden influence. After that, they used mathematics to deduce the position of that celestial body. Sure enough, they discovered Neptune. Time moves forward to 2021. Topic of Planet 9 has been reignited. After revising existing models, researchers have proposed an entirely new hypothesis. Maybe the orbit of this mysterious planet is not as distant as we once thought. It only takes about 7,000 years to orbit the Sun once. This is huge news, because it means that its orbital period is much shorter than the previously estimated 10,000 to 20,000 years. In other words, it might be closer to us. If that is the case, our telescopes might actually be able to spot it in the foreseeable future. Even more exciting is that the latest paper suggests those Kuiper belt objects with strange orbits have a 99% chance of being influenced by this invisible giant planet, rather than by some coincidence or observational error. You heard that right, 99%. Now the likelihood that this whole thing is just a coincidence, it has already been compressed to 1/250th. That is much stronger than the 1/10,000th when the hypothesis was proposed in 2016. It is a huge improvement. That is why we are still persistently searching for it today, because with every improved model, with every precise investigation, we keep shrinking the space where it can hide. Just like we mentioned before, the research team in Hawaii used the Pan-STARRS telescope and rapid response system to rule out 78% of its possible hiding places. It sounds like searching for a needle in a cosmic haystack, but we are starting to have a map in our hands. Even so, Planet 9 is still a ghostly enigma. He seems to flicker in and out of sight at the dark edge of the solar system, leaving behind a trail of mysteries, but never revealing himself. Yet astronomers and science enthusiasts have not given up. They firmly believe he is out there. Maybe soon we will witness the night when his existence is finally confirmed. If Planet 9 really exists, then it would most likely be under the surveillance of this system, with nowhere to hide. But even as the evidence continues to grow, the existence of Planet 9 still has not reached a consensus in the scientific community. Why is that? Because it is not the only possible explanation for these anomalies. There are other possibilities. Some scientists have proposed that there might not be a single large ghost planet at all. Instead, it could be an entire group of small objects in the Kuiper belt, such as dwarf planets and comets, or even some distant moons. Their collective gravity, together, they have shaped these orbits' peculiar paths. There is an even bolder hypothesis that suggests it is not planets manipulating things at all, but something far more extreme. A black hole, small but exceptionally deadly black hole, might be quietly lurking at the edge of the solar system, using its immense gravitational pull, disrupting the orbits of celestial bodies in that region. After all, black holes are the most deadly and powerful sources of gravity known in the universe. It is entirely possible for one to simulate effects similar to those of Planet 9. But here's a more radical idea. Some physicists think the problem might actually lie with us. Maybe our understanding of gravity itself is wrong. They proposed a theory called Modified Newtonian dynamics, which suggests that in extremely distant regions between stars, gravity does not work the way we are familiar with. Those cold, small objects far from the sun behave so strangely, not because they are influenced by a planet, but rather because they began to feel the subtle pull of the Milky Way's overall gravity. This idea sounds very avant-garde, but even the supporters of this theory admit that the evidence is far from sufficient. Much more observation and data are needed to verify it. The truth about Planet 9 remains unresolved. But scientists' imagination never stops there. While Planet 9 has yet to be confirmed, researchers have proposed a new candidate, Planet 10. It could be as large as Mars, or close to Earth's mass. Its orbital position is located right on the edge of the Kuiper belt. But that brings up another problem. If it is really that small, then its gravity might not be strong enough to clear debris from its own orbit. And that is exactly one of the main reasons Pluto was demoted back then. So do not get too excited just yet. So-called 10th planet might ultimately just be another dwarf planet. At the end of the video, did you notice a problem? Everyone is asking where Planet 9 is. But very few people ask what it actually is. We assume it is a celestial body, with mass and an orbit, controlled by gravity. But what if it is not? What if it is some kind of boundary, a crack in the structure of the universe, variation in the physical constants, an illusion that makes us mistake it for a planet? Then what exactly are we tracking? A celestial body, or the edge of reality?